we've got the lifers who have got to progress through the system, but they can't progress because of the state of the prisons. Now, these are the ones that are feeling the brunt of it. These are the ones that can't be arsed with all the drugs and everything and all the violence and everything that's happening on the wings when the prisons are in uproar and they're supposed to behave themselves and not get involved in any of it. In amongst all this fucking shit that's going on, the boredom can get a hold of you sometimes, and you might be sitting in a pad with a few lads and they offer you a bit of hooch. You get pissed up, you lose your inhibitions, you say something or the screws know you're pissed, you get wrote up, then you're fucked. You come for your parole, you get a knockback. So with the system being on its arse, you've got the lifers that are hating it at the moment. But the lifers that want to progress are having to see all this going on in front of them, people getting off their nuts on a regular basis. And imagine you're a lifer or an IPP, you've got to be squeaky clean. But you haven't just got to deal with yourself and your own thoughts, your own messed up head of being in prison, dealing with everything that's going on. You've then got to deal with another 50 plus lads on the wing, depending on how big the wing is. Sometimes there's 100 lads on the wing. So you've then got to deal with not only yourself, but all these other people. And you're not supposed to react. So say someone's off the nut and they start fucking on, or someone's pissed up out their heads and is wanting to fight, or they bump into you and they start causing a bit of aggro, you're supposed to just walk away from it. A normal, determinate sentence prisoner would have it right out, put it right on them, batter them, get stuck in, have a fight, or seriously injure them or hurt them for the way they've just fucked on with you in prison. Because that's what happens, you can't get disrespected or you will be fucking treated like shit. So you've got to stand up for yourself. But if you're an IPP or a lifer, that's not allowed, supposedly. If you get caught doing that, even though it wasn't your fault, then you get a 2-year knockback. So it's an ongoing vicious circle, vicious cycle, but you are stuck in the middle of, and there's nothing you can do if you're an IPP or a lifer. You've got to live that fucking nightmare, waiting for your chance of parole, and you've got to say or make sure that you've been squeaky clean, you had no altercations on the wing, you've had no arguments with the screws, you've had no altercations with any of the prisoners, you've had no nickings. So imagine how hard that is, and I know how hard it is because I was living it just a few years ago. When I was back in on my recall IPP, got into a few bits of altercations, nothing that got nickings or wrote up for, but it could have quite easily escalated. It could have turned bad really quick if I didn't use my head and keep me mind or keep myself cool in these type of situations. Because when I was in home house on a recall, I was with a bunch of lads who I was having it with on the wing. Having it with means the ones that you've got to click with, who you knock around with. And one night they decided they were all going to get smashed on the hooch, a few of the bits and pieces, but I had a hearing coming up. I was in on an IPP recall. That's a fucking big no-no for me, but you think to yourself, like, how do you deal with situations like this? Obviously, I've still sat with them when they were drinking, and with me being the only one in the pad sober, the only one out on the landing, you could see everything going on, you could see everything brewing, and I just knew from being on a straight head and looking what was going to happen, because I've been in this situation and that scenario dozens of times over the years. Sometimes I've been involved in it, more so when I was in HMP Franklin, because we used to get pissed up on a regular basis in there and get smashed at Christmas time and have parties. But I didn't give a fuck back then, because I was only in my early 20s. Now I'm in my late 30s, married with 4 kids at home. I wanted to be back out on the streets. I wanted to be back home, rather, not on the streets. I wanted to be back home with me family. So that split second, I could have just said, right, I'll get on the hooch with the lads, but guess what? They all got nicked that same day. Because like I said, I could see things escalating. Things were brewing on the wing, not just the hooch, by the way. And you could just see two groups of lads. Some southern lads, Cockneys. One of them was from Nottingham, Coventry rather. And you could just see what was about to happen. They started mouthing on, immature, pissed up on the drink. The group of lads I was with, doing the same thing, and I just thought, here we go. And it kicked off. Punches were getting chucked all over. Screws came bolting down. A few of the lads got banged up behind the door. Then me and another lad were left on the landing, my pal Thomas. We were out on the landing, both IPPs. And a couple of these lads were still mouthing on, and we were the only ones out. So they came up the landing, came walking down towards us, mouthing on. Obviously, we're IPP. These are both determinate sentence prisoners who've got a release date there. They know when they're getting out. And one of them, who wasn't even involved with them, come up with his hands down his pants, had a chair down his pants, started getting closer to us. Then I lost my mind, lost my fucking head, started shouting at him, just about to smash his face in. But luckily, he seen how fucking mad I was getting, and he walked off the landing, left the landing. Everyone was coming out saying, Ricky, how you calm down, leave it, it's not worth it. They're all at me backs and you're always IPP, and this little fucking runt from down London was just coming up wanting some grief with his hands down his pants, a little batty boy, thinking he was fucking hard. But a bit of when you show a bit of force like you're not scared, fucking shouting down at them, he shot back down. But that situation there, weeks and months before my parole hearing, I wouldn't be sitting here now, I'd probably be sitting still inside. Because if I did let loose and start smashing them, then if again, there's cameras all over, I would have been the one that was fucking nicked, charged, whatever. Still sitting in there now for what? For a bunch of lads that were getting pissed up who would have been released, and I would have been sat sitting in there. Now that's the situations that's happening on a daily basis that these lads have got to deal with and put up with, these lifers and IPPs. The determinate sentence lads didn't give a shit because they've got a release date and they're not bothered about IPPs or lifers, they're just bothered about themselves. The IPPs came out almost 20 years ago now, and there's still lads sitting in there. But a lot of time people have asked us, well, how come they can still be sitting in there? Some of them had 12-month tariffs, 6 months, believe it or not. One of them who had a 6-month tariff, I think he's been in one of the longest, being 19, coming up 20 years inside a prison on a 6-month tariff. Now, people have said, well, how come he's still inside? It's his own fucking fault. It's not, it's his own fault as in the behaviour. But when you understand what's going on in there, and the IPPs, and the lads, the majority of them that's got them, and the lasses, because there is a load of lasses that got them as well, can't physically and emotionally control themselves. They've got mental health issues. So imagine being on a wing with 100 other people, about 80% of them have got mental health problems, running around lunatics, and if they haven't got mental health problems, they're off their nuts, which is causing mental health problems, and you're supposed to be a model prisoner, a role model prisoner, just because you're serving that sentence. Now, some of them that's been in coming up 20 years did have mental health problems before they went in, which didn't get diagnosed. And imagine an IPP prisoner with an ADHD or autism. It doesn't come into play when they come up for parole that they've got these conditions. What does come into play is the fact that they've messed around on the wing. Someone said something to them. They've reacted because that's how they react. It's how they respond to situations. Because they can't physically cope in them situations. They feel like they're getting targeted sometimes. So they're trying to show a bit of aggression so that it doesn't happen in future. And these are the scenarios. And they come up for parole boards and they keep getting knocked back. So then they turn to drugs inside a prison to cope with this torment and torture that they're going through. So what happens when they come up for parole again? They've had a piss test. They've had a negative piss test. A positive positive piss test for whatever drug they've been taking whilst in there, and they get another knockback. And this is ongoing 20 years later, believe it or not. I count myself as one of the lucky ones because I had my head screwed on. I know how to handle myself and I know how to handle these situations. But you get lads that can't handle themselves and can't handle them situations, and they're just getting treated like shit, not getting any help whatsoever, and they're still stuck in the system now. And that's why the UK prison system is an absolute fucking mess. They can't even get on the courses because of the overcrowding. So how are they supposed to show that they're rehabilitated and the progress and they've acted in a positive manner when you've got all of this ongoing? This inhumane sentence was abolished in 2012 and it's still ongoing now. That should have been abolished retrospectively across the board, and then people should have been resentenced. Because even though I say this a lot on here, and you know the ones who have been following my channel, when I talk a lot about the bacons and the bacon bashers, a lot of bacons are on IPP. So you couldn't just let these bacons back out onto the street because they are a danger to kids. And nothing is worth that, letting these horrible creatures out to attack youngsters. That is what's made it tricky for the rest of the IPPs, and that is why they haven't been overturned completely. And the ones who have been following me channel, I'm here the social media pages. I am in the process of making a documentary on the IPPs, and I am getting as many family members, IPP prisoners, ex-prisoners, professionals, all involved. So if you all want to get involved in that, drop us an email or DM us on one of my socials and you can be involved. I'm just going to get a few minute clip of each and every person that wants to be involved, and I'm going to talk about the IPPs in depth and share everybody's stories and get it out and widespread as much as possible to let everyone know what's going on with the IPPs, because there's still over 3,000 in prison serving an IPP sentence, where thousands of these could be released back onto the streets, back into hostels or homes to get rehoused and be living out here and getting on with their lives and putting that absolute nightmare of a sentence behind them. Now, when people have asked me thoughts, like I've just mentioned there, about the IPP as well, if it was used for what it was designed for and kept it for the bacons, the nonsense, then it would have worked. They deserve that sentence because they need to be looked at constantly to make sure that they're not harming kids. Because someone who commits what you would class as normal offences, where it's not S offence, how can you put them in the same category as bacons? Someone like myself who committed violence against other like-minded lads, not innocent people in the street, no innocent victims, people who were like-minded, who were like me, who had been in trouble. So someone like myself who's committed violent acts against other violent men, how can you put that in the same category as someone who has harmed a child by sex? It's not even, it's rape. I'll not say it on here because it'll flag up. It's not even that sound. I shouldn't have even used that term sex, because it's not sex. It's fucking grape. What they do to these kids, these bacons, what they've done. It's not consent. It's forcefully taken from them for the rest of their lives. How can you put them in the same category as a violent person who's committed violent acts against another violent male, or someone who went into, just say, for instance, a shop or a post office or a bank and robbed it? That is not the same as robbing a child of their innocence. There's a total difference. So there should be different sentences for them. They get lesser sentences than what normal criminals do. They should have been kept. The IPP, if it was kept for them, it would have worked in my eyes, because these beasts need to be kept on something for the rest of their lives, because they cannot be rehabilitated. You can't change the mindset of a beast, a bacon, someone whose preference is little ones. You cannot change or rehabilitate them. I don't care what you say. They aren't wired up like we are. Like a straight man fancies women, these predators fancy kids. So how can you change that? It's like saying to me, or a straight man, don't fancy women. Obviously I'm married, so I won't fancy any women. But it's like saying to a straight man, you no longer fancy women. If you fancy women, if you're attracted to women, we'll put you in prison. It just isn't possible. So how can you tell them to not be attracted to little ones? That's what they like. So you cannot change that. You can't rehabilitate these monsters. So they should not have had the same sentence as people like myself. It's two totally different offenders. So it should have totally different sentences. And that is the IPP, imprisonment for public protection. It should have been imprisonment for the minors' protection. That's what they should have brought out for them. So I'm going to leave that one there for now, people. Hopefully you are still enjoying the content. And if you're still watching up till now, I'm sure you are. But double check that you are subscribed. And if you're not, hit that button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. Take care, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.